Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Extreme Ghost Hunting Presents with your hosts Mr. Paul Green, the Psychic Breaker.
Hello.
And myself, the Extreme Ghost Hunter in inverted commas, Stephen Lambert.
Are you sure?
Well, possibly. Okay. And our show tonight, a very special guest, Jacky Newcomb. But before we get Jacky on, touch wood. Touch your head, Paul. We've had no technical problems tonight, and we know Jacky's line's absolutely clear as a whistle.
That's it. We're doomed.
We're doomed now. I said this last month and everything went off. Just everybody listening, obviously, if you're a guest in the chat room and you want to ask a question or you want to chat with other people in the chat room, you have to, well, you don't have to register. You can sign in through your Facebook accounts or your Twitter or your MySpace or your Google accounts. I say it's quite easy. People seem to have trouble doing it. It's easy for us because we're already logged in. If you want to post a question, you know, and you don't want anybody else to see, just PM, message me and Paul in the or private message Paul
you
himself,
whisper.
or whisper. You can whisper even. If you just want to sit and listen, that's fine. If you've got a question for Jacky, put it in there, and if it's clean and we can do it, we'll ask it. But I don't want to waste any more time.
Good.
And I would like to welcome Jacky to the show.
Well, good evening.
Hello. Now, I'm sure most people know exactly who you are and what you do, but to recap, for those people who may have stumbled across the show, you're an author.
I am, yeah.
You're
14 books down.
How many?
14.
Yeah, see, for one side said 13, one side said 14, so we've got it right, 14.
14, we had 14, that was good.
14, yes. We have just released another one in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, all right. You're an expert on angels, ghosts, the afterlife, and spirit guides. That's probably the best way to describe it.
I do it all, really. I mean, the thing is, I've been called the angel lady for a long time, but the trouble is, if you're going to do anything in the paranormal, you really need to know about it all, because they all interconnect, don't they?
I mean, my only problem is, because I'm a psychic medium, so first of all, you tell people to go, really? Because they don't believe us. Because I have a look. Then they start talking about UFOs, or zombies, or witches. It's like,
I know.
Yes, you've got to know most of the stuff that connects. You need to know.
You do, yeah. And over the years, I mean, I've read about everything. I've written about everything. It's just useful to have a sort of an understanding of everything paranormal because of the way it interconnects. And I mean, I'll go on the radio and people will start talking about angels because that's why I've been invited on, and then I'm answering questions about ghosts and the afterlife, and so it's just easier. Plus, I'm fascinated with it all. It's all interesting stuff, isn't it?
Well, given the fact you mentioned the angels, I'm sure that's the first question, and the question you get asked most often is, how did you get involved? Was there something early in life which led you on this path? Yeah,
there was. When I was about 5 years old, we were on a family holiday, and I'd been sort of building sandcastles with my sister, and my mum sent me down to the sea to rinse the sand off my hands, ready for lunch. We were going to have sandwiches.
Yeah, taking tomato, no doubt.
It was a really hot day.
Yeah.
And I'd got flip-flops on because the sand was so hot. Oh. And I took my swimming ring down with me because I thought, well, I'll just have a little paddle while I'm there to cool off. And I walked down to the sea, and sort of, before I knew it, I'd been lifted up by the waves and was sort of bobbing around, which was fine.
Yeah, fun.
Suddenly I couldn't touch the bottom. And
lots of fun.
Yeah, it was a bit scary. 5-year-old, and couldn't swim, and I found myself being pulled out to sea. Oh, and my parents, they couldn't see me because the beach was sort of crowded up, and I, after all, was meant to be washing my hands and coming back. Mm. And I started to panic, and at that stage, even at 5, I remember thinking I could die today. Mm. And as that thought entered my head, I suddenly felt this sort of great sense of peace and calm. And I had a voice, I would say the voice that occurred to me rather than I heard it, but the voice said, you can drown if you want to. So I was given a choice as to whether I wanted to live or die, and obviously I chose to live.
It's like you're talking to us.
Why would you want to die? No, I want to live, thank you. And I mean, in the true Hollywood version of the story, I'd suddenly find myself flying back onto the beach or something.
Yeah.
The real life version was that I was suddenly able to move myself forward and gone onto the beach very quickly. In fact, I got out and thought, perhaps I've just learnt to swim, and went back in the water and promptly went under. So that was a bit dumb, wasn't it? But there you go.
You can just imagine the angel going for... Oh, yeah.
I got sort of stepped out of my swimming ring and realised that all the air had come out. So I hadn't even had that to help me. And I remember running up the beach and saying, "Mummy, Mummy, I nearly drowned." And she sort of said, "Yes, but you're fine, dear. Have a sandwich."
That's parents do.
Yeah, and it's like the big moment had gone. And I remember thinking, even at that moment, let it go. Mm. And I forgot about the experience for years and years and years until I was an adult. And I was watching television. It was watching This Morning, and it was with Richard and Judy.
Oh, grief, yeah.
So, yeah, we're going back a long way, aren't we? And somebody came on and they were talking about angels. And this memory of mine that I had as a child came flooding back, and I remember thinking, I wonder if that was an angel experience. Mm. And it was that point that I then started to investigate the phenomena and became hooked. Mm.
Mm. It just strikes me as very... I won't go for my whole story, but basically I was age 40-something when I had to give up work. And I was a skeptic. And there was a series of events which led me, just as you did, to start to investigate it. So it wasn't a case of an instant conversion in belief. It was a slow process of finding out, getting some information about the topic, the subject, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, from a... Hi, Jacky, it's Stephen. You know it's me, because we spoke beforehand. You know it's me.
You're spoiling the mystery.
I know, I'm spoiling the mystery there. I've spoiled it though. For the layman people who may be listening, I mean, it's probably a hard answer to put into... a big question to put into a small answer. I mean, what are angels, and maybe what's their place in the spiritual world?
Well, these days people will often call their deceased loved ones angels.
Right.
And, I mean, angels in the traditional sense are created by God or our creator, the supreme being, whatever you want to call that one single essence. They were created for many reasons, mainly to worship and praise God. That's the tradition.
Handy to have, I want one.
Pretty good role there.
Yeah.
I mean, one of those roles is also to take care of humankind, amongst other things. So that what you're talking about here is a sort of a light being, a being of light, not a spirit or a soul, nothing like a human soul would be, a being without free will, the sort of thing that you would read about in the Bible. That's a traditional angel.
Right.
Over the course of my work, people have talked about other things other than that traditional angel. So they might be talking about a spirit that helps them, so what you would call a traditional spirit guide in the Native American tradition. Mm-hmm. So a deceased spirit who comes back and helps you, or also, as we said earlier, a deceased loved one who will come back and often appear in dreams and things like that and say, I'm still here, I'm still around you, I'm still with you, I'm your guardian angel now.
Right.
So they don't mean angel in the traditional sense. What they mean is, I'm here looking over you, watching out for you, helping you, I'm still around for you. So angel, it's a long answer to a short question.
Yeah, no, it actually is interesting. There's actually a question that popped in the chat room, which leads on to a question I had as well. Because, first of all, when I was in development class as a medium, I was first of all told that an angel is an energy which hasn't touched the earth plane. So it wouldn't be somebody who was born and went back into life.
Not normally.
Yeah.
Tradition has it that there are angels that have been created from man, from humankind. But to be honest, that's when you start to get into what I call the boring stuff.
That's probably what the question is, actually.
But it's not relevant to how angels interact with us in current day life. I mean, an angel in the traditional sense is a being of life, a being of light, who won't have lived a human life. For the most part, that's what they would be.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Well, that leads on to the experience I have and a question in the chat room, because when I was in the developing classes I mentioned, part of it was obviously guided meditation. And in one, I experienced, or whatever term one you use, which a teacher later told to me was actually the archangel, sending out smaller angels to Earth to help humans. Now, I didn't understand at the time. I was new to the whole angel thing. And somebody in the chat room, Angel Psychic Artist, asked, can you ask Jacky about the angel hierarchies, seraphims, cherubs, archangels? So is that basically what you mean in terms of the traditional?
Yes, yeah. I mean, the hierarchy was created by humankind. So, we were the ones that created the hierarchies based on the best knowledge that we had at the time. So angels were split up into three spheres of angels. So there's the angels that you have which are closest to the earth plane, so the seraphims, the cherubim, the principals, the archangels, the guardian angels, the angels that are closest to the earth plane, and then the higher angels who don't come down and work with us on earth, the seraphims, the cherubims, and the thrones.
Right.
And then those in the middle, the dominions, virtues, and powers. There are different variations on those names. But really, the only angels that are particularly relevant to us are guardian angels.
Right.
So they're the angels that we work with, or the archangels, which people have heard of because they appear in the Bible and, another religious document. Yeah. I mean, in the Bible, the only two angels that are mentioned by name, the good angels that are mentioned by name, are actually Archangel Gabriel and Archangel Michael. And that's sort of the only ones that most people have heard of.
Yeah.
But really, it's only guardian angels that are of interest to most people. I mean, all this sort of technical stuff, it's almost boring.
Try and spot us for angels.
Yeah, I mean, I've written about it in the book. Yeah. But, what people are more interested in is, how can an angel help me? How is an angel relevant to my life? Because when you hear about these angels that are sitting next to God and they're spending all day sort of praising God and things like that, people say, well, why is that interesting to me? And traditionally that's what would have been written. That's all you would find in books, is that you find this sort of traditional information. Whereas nowadays, I started in 2004, my first book came out, and I started writing about people's experiences, real life angel experiences, and there was a sort of an explosion of interest. And I mean, there are stacks of books on the shelves at any bookshelf, in any bookshop these days, about people's real life encounters, and that seems to be what's caught people's imagination the most for some reason.
I mean, I'm sort of asking questions that people. I'm going to try and ask some questions for people who, in the chat room, maybe don't ask or maybe thinking about. I mean, do you believe we all have guardian angels?
Incidentally, I know I've brushed over that question about the hierarchy, but if people do want that information, it is on my website. I don't want to brush anybody else. It's just it's a bit.
Yeah, that's fine. There's a link. We'll put a link in the chat room anyway, so people can go to the website and check that out. That's not a problem. There's a link in the chat room there.
Or buy a book.
Or buy the book, yes. Which we've all put a link to in the chat room.
The library as well.
Yes. So I mean, I was touching on that thing. Do you think we all have guardian angels, or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, absolutely. I mean, without doubt. I mean, there are traditions all over the world, and religions where, in religions that the religions disagree about what God is, for example, but there are, religions believe in some sort of guardian angel, even if they don't call it that. And I think, personally, my experiences that I've had and those that I've written about, hundreds and hundreds of stories, to me indicates that without a doubt, guardian angels are real, and they step in and they do help people. I mean, they're there. There's no doubt about it whatsoever.
Well, that sort of leads on to two points, actually, two questions. One in the chat room again from the Angel Psychic Artist, but my question as well, which are both basically linked, is she asks, how do you perceive the angels? And that basically is my question. How would, not just you, me, anybody listening, would know if there was an angel around them?
Again, so many different ways, but I'll cover some of the most common ones. For most people, they don't see anything.
Right.
You know, people write to me and they're really disappointed. How can I get to see an angel? Well, you probably won't. I mean, honestly, if a sort of, 20, 30-foot angel appeared in the middle of the room, you'd probably run for it. Angels, the angels in the Bible, the shepherds saw the angels, they were in awe of them, they were frightened of them. These sort of giant beings, towering above you. I know it's pretty scary. I mean, keep in mind that they don't exist on the same dimension as we do. So if you imagine that if you look at a helicopter blades, it gets faster and faster and faster, and it seems to they seem to disappear in front of our eyes. And it's not that they no longer exist, it's that our eyes are unable to perceive them because they are then, because of the speed. And it's the same with angels and most spirits, is that for the most part, it's the limitations of our physical human body that's the problem. It's not that they're not there, it's that our bodies just are unable to see them. We know that different birds and different animals can perceive the world around them in ways differently to ourselves, for example. For example, a common goldfish is the only creature that can see in the infrared and ultraviolet range. They all see in different ways to ourselves, which is why, dogs and cats, get their heckles up when they, they'll see something and start with dogs up barking something in the corner of the room. We can't see it because the dog's eyesight works differently to ours. So that's the first thing, is that you probably won't see an angel, or a ghost for that matter, most of the time, because the condition's not right for us to be able to see them. So for them to manifest in front of us, they literally have to slow down their energy to be able to appear in front of us, or ours needs to be speeded up. So we could be asleep, for example. Or conscious. And if people do see angels, it's often because, say, they've had an accident, and they see somebody sitting beside them, holding their hand, saying, "Don't worry, everything's going to be okay." And then when somebody comes to rescue, the police arrive to cut them out of the car or what have you, they say, "Who was that lovely lady that sat holding my hand?" And they say, "What lady?"
What are you talking about?
We're in that state of consciousness, which makes it easier for them to be able to dip down and for that brief moment to be able to see us. As I said, people can't see it. But I mean, there are lots of other signs. People sometimes will see twinkling lights or stars. They'll see white light. When angels appear in dreams, they'll often appear in a white glowing light, for example.
We've got to actually, at that might tie with a question we've gotten from Diane Green, who's in the chat room.
Hello, Diane.
She's also a host on another show on Blog Talk Video. She was saying that a friend of hers was sitting in his office, and I had this immense light and a feeling of serenity for just a brief moment, but nobody else in the saw it. So nobody else saw it or had the same emotions to say, would that be an angel?
Very likely. I mean, often it's people will have those types of experiences to announce a birth, or somebody that they love has just passed over. And people will have that. Mr. Diane's put waving in the chat room. Hi, Diane. I'm waving back. That's brilliant. Yes, everybody's joining in now.
That's me.
It's often there's a reason for it. That sort of great sense of peace, which is what I had myself as a young child. If somebody receives some sort of communication like that, usually it's because they're in a daydreaming state of mind. So I know it sounds bizarre, but women will write to me and say, I've been waiting for my late mother to contact me for the last 20 years. And, yesterday I was stood in the kitchen ironing, and I suddenly felt her stand behind me, and I had a great sense of peace surround me. And that's because when you're doing something like the ironing or the washing up, another common one, people are in a daydreaming state of mind. So you'll momentarily have slipped into a slight altered state of consciousness.
Yeah. It's almost like a meditation stage. You disassociate your mind with what's going on around you on a day-to-day.
And we dip in and out of that different states of consciousness all day long. So when your brain is wandering in that way, because what you're doing physically is something you don't need to put your mind onto, that they're able to sort of sneak in. And they'll, so you'll get this sense of peace. Sometimes it's accompanied with a nice smell. Say flowers is the most flowers. Vanilla. Occasionally you'll get something like tobacco, which is not nice, but it's usually because it's associated with the deceased loved one.
That's what I was going to ask you, yeah. Because so often when I'm doing readings, I've said your grandma, and you'll know it's your grandmother, grandfather, your mother, because you will smell. And it could be anything. I mean, just to give you a really weird example, my wife, when if her father wanted to make himself known by smell, it would be the smell of fertilizer. I mean real fertilizer, because he was a massive keen gardener, had a huge allotment, and his car was always full of bags of fertilizer.
It's
it's a weird one, but it would mean so much proof positive.
Yeah, don't you? I mean, in my books, there's some that I remember, there was one where a lady was smelling coconut, and she said, well, her whole family was smelling coconut, and apparently her grandmother used to be, the world's best coconut cake maker, apparently. Then another one was the smell of fish and chips, and so strong was the smell of fish and chips, it actually woke somebody up. And she said, I went downstairs to tell my teenage boys off, thinking they were sort of, up in the middle of downstairs. And she said there was no one in the house, and she said, and then I realised it was, it was her father-in-law who'd passed away, and that was his big thing, the fish and chips. So it woke her up. So the smell can be anything, but probably the most common, thankfully, it's not fertilizer. It's usually flowers. So that is another sign. People sometimes will hear angel music. As you would expect it to sound, the sort of, harmonizing choir type of sound, it really just sounds like the whole harps thing. I've heard it once in my life. I heard it right at the very beginning.
So did they think that the angels are, I don't know what term to use, sort of playing to our expectations in order to identify ourselves, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. Because angels in any, say, the biblical descriptions of the angels, they don't really contain wings. They don't have wings in the way that we would see them now. There are descriptions of angels with, surrounded by fire and eyes on, hundreds of wings. I mean, that sounds quite horrible.
I've seen them, yeah.
Not described in the way that we see them, and really the whole wing thing came about more in Renaissance paintings, where I think they were trying to identify angels, make them look different to humans, and halos. They have the sort of halos above their head, where angels will often appear in a glowing light. And I think people didn't understand how an angel could appear and then disappear, and they assumed that they would fly like birds. Hence the wings. But of course, it's because they shift dimensions, so they move in a way that we don't really understand. But I don't think it matters. The fact sometimes people see them with wings, sometimes they don't. Children usually see them with wings, and I think it would, certainly if you're a child, it would be less frightening to see, some giant being comes into your room.
Everybody's bigger than you, yeah.
You think, oh, it's an angel, not it's a giant ghost coming to get me. So it is. You're right. It's all about expectations, really, but it's always accompanied by that sort of sense of deep peace and contentment. So it's how they make you feel more than how they look. As I say, most people don't see them anyway.
I mean, a couple of things I touched on. I mean, obviously when we do a lot of events places, and I've been off a lot of places by myself, normally when I get in a room by myself, ghost hunting, there's a smell about. It's me out the room. If there's something going to kick off, I say kick off in inverted commas, it's more activity. That's a normal sign for me. Is you'll get a smell, or there'll be an odor, or there's a temperature change, or whatever it may be. And
they can easily manipulate. Now, I don't really know how. We don't know enough about how that works. But it seems to be something that is easy for them to introduce into our space, where they can't necessarily show themselves, but a smell is something that they can do, and the change of temperature. Well, and manipulating electricity, that's another one. I mean, they're fantastic at manipulating electricity. I mean, there are so many stories, for example, of how, great-granddad died and the clock stopped at the time he died and never went again. And I mean, that is traditional sign all over the world. I mean, modern-day signs include, my sister, after my dad died, she went with, or our father died, she went with my niece to a special award ceremony, and my niece had won an award, and it hadn't been long since my dad had passed over, and she said, I was thinking, Dad would have loved this. And at that moment her phone bleeped, and it came up with a number 1 next to his name to say that he sent her a message. Well, she said the only thing that was still on the phone was his phone number and his picture, because, I mean, he'd been dead for sort of 8 weeks. There was no actual message, but of course the message was, you know, bleep, I'm here. So they use modern technology. I've got loads of, you know, they've left messages on answer phones and things. They use modern technology now. I mean, it always makes it easier for them, I think, to be able to do that. You know, if you're ghost hunting in a, you know, in an old dark castle, to be honest, you're actually more likely to get phenomena in a modern day house sitting in broad daylight.
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple of things. You obviously mentioned your sister Madeline. I saw you and her on the Gabby show when she mentioned she was very interested in the scientific side. Yes. Of the angels, and that's something I discussed with a guest we had on our show about quantum mechanics.
Yes.
And how it all ties in, you know what I mean?
You have to have her on.
Yeah.
That was actually, I was talking about a different sister. There's three sisters, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, I mean that's her whole area. She's the one that's really fascinated in, you know, the science of the different dimensions and so on, because, you know, there is so much out there. I mean, people scoff at it and they kind of think, you know, it's all based on nothing. But of course, you know, there is a lot of scientific research about paranormal phenomena. I mean, there's a guy that will say quite categorically that he's proved that, you know, that we do have past lives, that we live numerous lives, because he's done investigations into young children abroad who they never left the village that they were.
Yeah,
I
think I read about that actually. Yeah.
Of, you know, previous lives and families, and then they've gone in and sort of taken the whole family and travelled to the other end of the country or something, found the family, the child's recognised them. You know, amazing thing. You know, there is a lot of people doing a lot of research, and normally when you find somebody says, well, this is all a load of rubbish, isn't it? Usually I will then say to them, well, how much research have you actually done?
That's exactly what I say. I love that. That's exactly what I say to them.
There's nothing, because you can't, you know, these days, you know, really it's a bit naive to just say it's all a load of rubbish, because there is so much proof to the contrary. There is.
Sorry, I wasn't laughing, I'm just laughing at the chat room there. Angel Psychic Artist said, I have a haunted fridge. Diane Green says, what, the chocolate goes missing. Yeah. My case, it's a beer.
Chocolate goes missing out of our fridge as well. Yeah, I know who the ghost is, though. You know, joking aside, things can appear and disappear, and that's something that they can also do.
I've had that. I mean, we live in a very small cottage.
Yeah.
It's difficult to lose, I think. But so often you're looking for your mouse, you're looking for a key, and you can't find him, and all of a sudden, an hour later, da-da.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can hear a ghostly giggling in the background. I
mean, it's normally small metal objects, coins, jewellery. Sometimes they'll move things like small crystals and things, they'll move around. But, you know, it's normally very lightweight. I mean, I had a fantastic experience of my own once, which, I've written in one of the books. I couldn't tell you which one now. I had a pair of gold hooped earrings that I had as an 18th birthday present, and they were very special to me. And I'd been out one day, came home, and I'd only got one earring in, and I thought, well, I could have lost it in the house, you know, or I could have lost it out, but I was very upset. Anyway, before I went to bed, I went and stood at the window, sort of looked heavenward and said, you know, please, you know, if this is real, please can you help me find my earring? Bit frivolous, you might think. Yeah. Well, I'll give it. No. And as I stood there, took my earring off, stood it on the windowsill and closed the curtains. The next morning, I was the first one up. I drew back the curtains. I'd forgotten about the earrings, and instead of one earring being on the windowsill, there were two.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because we had you on the show tonight, or we've also got a paranormal investigation the weekend, but today there's been so much of strange things happening in the office, I work from home, and in the home. Even to the extent I went into the bedroom, and my wife was in bed, and the television turned itself on.
I get that a lot when I go to shows. I have to say, you know, sometimes we have a problem with the sound, or something keeps switching off, or, you know, I love it because I feel like they're trying to help me to prove that it's real. And you know, and I never tell people in advance that that's what happens, but I love to hear that it does.
Yeah.
So. Well, what I think we're going to do, they're going to nip for a quick break and a song, a little couple of minute break. So if anybody's got any questions right away, just put them in the room.
And what I'd like to do in the second half is maybe move a little bit from the angels and talk about the paranormal side that Jacky does, and the book she wrote I was very interested in about her dad and messages.
Right. So we'll see you all soon. Hello everyone and welcome back to Extreme Ghost Hunting Presents. That was Paul's dulcet tones on the advert there.
Speaking posh Geordie like.
Posh Geordie. Welcome back to our show with Jacky Newcomb. Before we get Jacky back on, I just want to again just explain in the chat room for anybody new that's come in. If you're a guest and you're listening, that's fine. But if you want to interact or ask a question, please it's easy through Facebook, Google, MySpace. You can just click and log in. If you've come halfway through the show and missed some of the show and you want to listen again, you just basically go to www.blogtalkradio.com/EGH Media, and all the shows is there, plus tonight's show, and you can download it, listen again. It's on iTunes as a podcast, so if you search EGH Media on iTunes, it will be there to download as a podcast.
Yeah, don't do that stuff.
Paul's not very tight, but without waste any more time, because I'm going to put the links in and put Jacky back on and Paul can ask you another question.
Okay. I'll go now.
Yes.
I'll go now. Hi, Jacky.
Hello.
I mean, you've touched on it in the first half of the show, but I was reading, I mentioned that clip I saw from your website where you were on Gabby Rosland's show.
Yeah, Channel 5 Live with Gabby Logan.
That's right. It was about the book which came out, I think, in 2011, called Call Me When You Get to Heaven. Which I love the title, first of all.
Well, thank you. I dreamt the title.
Ah.
I woke up and the title was right there in my head. And I knew it was something important, but I didn't know what. So I wrote it down in a little notebook and put the date next to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my dad at that point hadn't died. So it was about 2.5 years later. And I said to my sister, we need to write about all the strange phenomena that started to happen now Dad is gone. And it was the day he died. We all started having, the whole family started having weird phenomena. And I said, I can't do this alone because I was grieving.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I need you to help me. Will you help me to write the book? So she said, yes. And I said, I already have the title. And I went and got the notebook and brought it out. And I said, here you go. Call me when you get to heaven. And I knew that's what I'd been given it for all those years ago. Strange, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I didn't know what you dreamt it. I just thought it was a fantastic title.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had...
I wish I'd thought of it.
I know. Often, some people ask me about my name, Psychic Bike. I wish it was a fantastic bit of branding, but it wasn't. That's the other thing. Yeah. But I mean, you mentioned the fact that the title, the book was sort of about things that was going on after your dad died. Was he died? Was it 2008?
Cool, you're asking me now.
Well, it was before, obviously, a couple of years before the book. So
a while ago.
Yeah. So what the book was about your experiences with his
our whole family's experiences. I mean, obviously, by this stage, I'd written a few books about the afterlife, and it was almost as if everything that I'd ever done was practice for that moment. And I think then I realised that I was always meant to write the book. I was always meant to write the book of his life and what happened. Mm-hmm. My family had always had weird paranormal experiences. And after my uncle died, my dad's brother died, we used to get a lot of strange phenomena happen then. And we'd go over to my parents' house on a Sunday for tea. We'd all gather together for Sunday tea. And we used to joke and say, has anybody invited Uncle Eric? And every time without fail, the lights would flicker. Or the doorbell would ring, and we used to laugh, and somebody'd run to the front door, and there was never anybody there. But it wasn't a normal doorbell ring. So the normal doorbell ring was a double, ding-dong, ding-dong. When Uncle Eric came a-calling, it was just a single ding-dong. So we used to joke about it, and then, one person would run to the window, and another would run to the door to make sure it wasn't kids messing around. But, it wasn't. So we already had that sort of phenomena before Dad passed. So when he was getting close, when he was getting very ill, I jokingly said to him one day, Dad, when you go, will you come back and visit me? And he said, yeah, of course I will, my darling. And I said, will you help me to write a book? And he said, do you mean like Uncle Eric does? Because I'd written about Eric in many of my books. And I said, yeah, like Uncle Eric does. And he said, well, are you going to pay me?
I was just wondering, did you get credit?
Which I thought was completely brilliant. And so really from the first from the day that he died, the phenomena started to happen. And the first night after his death, myself and all 3 of my sisters all had dreams where he came to visit us that night. It's slightly different. There was some crossover, but basically he was showing us how he died, met him, and what was going to happen next. And that then started to form the basis of the book. But the phenomena went on and on and on, and has continued since the book was finished.
Right. I mean, sort of these two sort of things tie in terms of what you're talking about. And in the first part of the story, you mentioned using modern equipment to communicate with.
Yeah.
Because it's a long story, I'll try and short it down. Basically, my wife's mother died unexpectedly. Lung clot, a blood clot in the lung, so it was very quick and very unexpected. The following day, I was sitting around, obviously upset, trying to eat some breakfast, and the phone started to ring. It was a cordless phone, but the ringtone was wrong, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I thought I'll leave it, let the answering service get it. It didn't kick in, so I picked the phone up, no number, tried to answer it, couldn't answer it. Getting irritated by now, so I took the batteries out the back of the handset, and the phone kept ringing. I unplugged the telephone line socket from the wall, and the phone kept ringing. I unplugged the base unit from the wall, and the phone kept ringing for about another minute.
Oh, fantastic.
And I've actually even went to people who are experienced in electronics and said, yeah, could this work? Is there any reason for this? And he says, well, there'll be a small residual charge in the circuit, but it wouldn't ring for a minute. You know, it's a similar sort of thing as you see.
It's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, I absolutely... I mean, really, you could say that, yes, I'm known as the Angel Lady, but this sort of spontaneous afterlife communication is really what excites me. And I suppose that's what became my speciality, because I was so fascinated by the fact that they would be able to reach out and communicate. And I sort of started my career at the time when Most Haunted first came on the air.
Yeah.
And I made friends with all the big psychic names, because we're in the same business. At that time was it was a small world, I suppose. We crossed paths all the time, but what I was doing really was different, because where they were doing psychic readings and acting as the intermediary, what I was interested in is where our deceased loved ones were coming back and contacting people direct. So in fact, in essence, everybody was the medium.
Cut the middleman out effectively. The middle person.
Yeah, I guess so. And I started documenting all the different types of phenomena and all the different ways that they were reaching out and communicating. And it included many of these sort of modern technology.
You often see like cartoons on Facebook and that, where on a ghost hunt you get 4 people sitting around a table and there's a phone in the middle saying text 1 for yes and 2 for...
I mean, touching slightly on what you mentioned about the book and the activity, I know God think, and we did our book, God think I'll probably have a head of hair like Paul's if we did 14 books. I'm
bald, well, that's cheap.
But
loved it though. I mean, I've enjoyed doing it.
I know, like, when I was writing some of the accounts of things that had happened in the past, I felt strange. There were strange experiences, especially when I did stuff about my grandfather in the book. You could sense there was a feeling of the person or the spirit was there. And it's when you're sitting, like, you concentrate your mind, like you said before, when you're ironing or whatever you're doing.
Like you ever iron.
I don't iron, but when you're into the book, your mind's it's in a different place, and I was. I could sense when I was writing accounts about my grandfather or being in a haunted castle with a certain spirit, or it was like I was there. It was like the spirit was there with us. And
I mean, people are more attuned when you're walking around in the dark, because you're relying on sort of less senses. In the same way that if you were, if you lost your sight, that the other senses become stronger and they don't compensate as such, but I mean your other senses do become stronger, and so I think that's why it works. And often, particularly in an old building, you've got the combination of the fabric of the building. Often you've got damp, and it's the water that helps, often acts as a good conductor. I mean, if you've got electrical energy in the air, say there's a storm brewing, even more so, because that also will help to manifest. I mean, it's no, it's no coincidence that spooky films there was always a thunderstorm, because the thunder and lightning, the electrical energy in the air, will help for you to see the physical manifestation of spirit. Whereas for the most part, that isn't what happened. Certainly not to my family, and for most people it doesn't. But you see, a lot of our phenomena happened where Eric first, and then later Dad, started appearing in dreams.
Right.
And we were given, information that we didn't know about in advance sometimes. I mean, people who we hadn't seen for years and had been unable to attend the funeral, we'd bump into coincidentally, and they would say, "I've just had this amazing dream about your dad." I mean, it just was bizarre, to the point that everything that I'd done beforehand, all the books that I'd written beforehand about people's experiences, where they might have had one or two experiences, here was an entire family. I mean, there were 20 of us in all. Right. Family and friends, some distant friends that we hadn't seen for a long time, who had experiences that we documented in the book. And some people had experiences over and over again. I mean, it was just bizarre. I mean, I'd never, in all of my experience, encountered anybody who'd had the experiences that I did.
It's massively interconnected, yeah.
But I never for 1 minute felt it happened because I was a special person or specially connected. I always felt that the reason that it happened to me was because I was writing about the phenomena and would get the word out. That was always the plan. It was part of why I was here. I'd agreed to my mission. This is my mission. Should I choose to accept it? I said yes. Yeah. And so everything that I'd done was building up to the moment where I would write the book about what happened after Dad passed away to all of these people. Yeah. I mean, it was just mind-blowing, really.
And they do say when you're asleep, it's as close to death as you can get, effective in terms of the body shutting down, and it's only the mind.
Yeah, I mean, of course. Of course, in some levels of sort of when we're unconscious or in a coma and so on, then you're getting closer to those realms. I mean, there are stories of people who've been in a coma for a long time who feel that they have tapped in to the other side whilst they've been under. I mean, there's one fantastic story where this guy was in a coma and he was communicated with, he had contact with the spirit of a newborn baby. Now, this baby had been born to his next door neighbour, I think it was. He didn't know the baby had been born. He was in a coma at the time. Yeah. And the baby said, when you come out of the coma, can you tell them the reason I keep crying is because I think the baby's leg had been dislocated or something.
Oh, right.
They'd been pulling that. I probably got all the details wrong, but something bizarre like that. And then when he came out of the coma, he said, I understand that, the neighbours have had their baby or what have you, and this is what's wrong. And, it's a long story, but the short version is that they checked and what he said was true. So I mean, all sorts of weird phenomena can happen.
Yeah, I saw John Ebert, famous. Yeah. Now I know I was on TV, so we know TV and editing. So I'm not saying this is a definite thing that happened, but he doing his style of reasons with it's like a machine gun, and he actually connected with somebody who was in a coma in a hospital.
Yeah, I think
at the end of his life. Yeah.
I've seen that happen with Colin Fry did the same thing.
Right. An angel psychic artist again in the chat room asked a sort of relevant question: is why is it that some loved ones never communicate?
Yeah, lots of reasons. Sometimes it's because of them. Sometimes they don't know that they can communicate. And we know this because they might contact somebody 20, 30 years after they've died and say, I didn't know it was possible. Yeah. So that's how we know.
It was probably a man who didn't read the manual.
Yeah, well, yeah. But also if their religious beliefs were such that there was an afterlife, they can cross over and be in a sort of a holding pattern for a long time before they wake up, as it were, and know that they are deceased. I've had many stories where people have come through after many years, or sometimes just after many months, and they have said, I was in a healing place, I was in a hospital place in heaven. and so I wasn't able to communicate because my soul had to recover before I was able to. My dad came to my sister, one of my sisters, not the one I wrote the book with, and said that our aunt, who passed over a while after my dad died, he said that she wasn't able to communicate straight away. He said because she was in a healing tube, he said, a healing tube. So there is some sort of healing of the soul that takes place, one of the reasons.
Yeah, I've been taught and read about the fact that basically some people, for whatever reason, who won't accept that don't realize they've crossed over, sometimes they'll be put so they can understand the process in a hospital bed before they moved on to the next level, just so they can understand the fact that
So I would imagine that perhaps my dad's description of a healing tube was probably more realistic, that what they're doing is that the hospital scenario is created for the deceased person so that they feel more comfort in something that they understand as a human, as a human being or from their recent human life. But I mean, we've had, other cases where deceased loved ones have finally managed to get through to somebody, not necessarily to one, the loved one that they wanted to. It's a neighbour, say, for example, or an old family friend, and they will say something like, I've tried to get through to my wife and I couldn't because she sleeps on a different level, or she's grieving, she's closed down, I can't reach into her.
Yeah.
So, it's technical reasons that we don't understand. I mean, actually, a lot of people wouldn't even be able to answer that question I just answered there. And it's just through years and years and years of reading thousands and thousands and thousands of real experiences that is sort of, that where I've drawn my conclusions from. And there is always more than one person that's written with something that then gives me the answer. I have several experiences that people have written to, and you think, aha. So that's how,
Well, I must admit, I always say that even people say, well, people cross over, the Uncle Joe crosses over, and just because he crosses over, he doesn't become a sudden vision of light and love. He was a bolshy bugger here, he was a bolshy bugger over there. Here, the personality carries over, and they might just not want to talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, there are, people, one lady wrote to me and she said, my aunt keeps appearing to me in a dream and she keeps giving me advice about my boyfriend. And I said, well, would you have taken your aunt's advice when she was alive? No. Well,
Don't put them often.
Yeah, because they don't suddenly become saints. No. More advanced spirits will sort of rise through those lower levels, and they probably won't communicate because the higher they go, the further they've got to come back.
Yeah.
So it's sort of more advanced spirits. It's more difficult. I mean, we discovered through my dad that an uncle of his, who was a fantastic, real pillar of the community when he was alive. He had a daughter with multiple sclerosis who he spent his life looking after. I mean, a very loving man. And he sort of said, he was a very highly evolved spirit, and that he would be unable to sort of come down and communicate because he'd gone to a much higher place. There's just so much that we don't understand about how it works, and I just devote the rest of my life to keep finding out for you.
On a personal level, Stephen's got a question for you, but on a personal level, I mean, I'm a carer for my wife, so that's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
I'm bigger than you.
Just something you touched on earlier, Jack. Obviously, you mentioned Most Haunted and the circles you were mixing in at the time. Did you get the chance to go on any of the, and again, I don't like using inverted commas, ghosts?
I hate the term, but a paranormal investigation.
Or an investigation or an event. Did you get the chance?
Well, I was on Most Haunted Live 3, at the very beginning, the one at St Pancras Station. That was fun. I stayed in the same hotel as the crew at the time, so that's how I got to know a lot of people. It's why I first met people like Richard Felix and David Wells and Colin Fry and Tony Stockwell were on the show.
Right.
So, I mean, I met a lot of people. I mean, a lot of these people who I met in those early years and years ago, have remained friends, and I still am in regular contact with now.
We had a charity ghost on the guy with Jason Cole, and he was actually on our first ever show we did here.
Very early show was funny, Jason.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, I tell the story. I actually saw the pilot of Most Haunted.
Oh, okay.
Where, I mean, obviously at the time they wanted a budget, and the wardrobe budget wasn't very big. It was a great show, but the later show they can say, "Oh, I've got some money now to get some better clothes."
I mean, it's just ran and ran. I mean, what an amazing show it was at the time. I mean, it was a real phenomena. People used to say to me, "Oh, do you know Derek Acora?" You know, we forget how big it was, you know, and that it was the first. It was a groundbreaking show. You know, and still, you know, you'll still find it on now. It's back on again now, isn't it, on one of the channels?
Yeah, on free-to-air. Yeah. I mean, people criticise. I know that I've heard criticism, but at the end of the day, somebody put their money where their mouth is, made the investment, made the pilot, and basically
they did a fantastic job for a very long time, and they introduced a lot of people to the idea of spirit. You know, you can't knock them for it. They, you know, the show ran and ran. It was, you know, a massive success. And, you know, a lot of copycat shows that followed, you know, where the interest just sort of kept going. I mean, how long was it on the air for? About 11 years or something, wasn't it? A very long time. So, yeah, really. And I just came in at that time. I mean, that's when I first sort of started doing my work, was just as most haunted came into the picture. My books on angels came out at that time, and I thought I almost rode on the crest of the wave, really.
Or somebody was guiding you that way.
It was all about timing, I think. Yeah. You know, like I said, it was. You know, I'm not a special person. I'm just an ordinary mum, and I'm a granny now. And I think it was what I came here to do. You know, and I was just lucky that things just sort of fell into place for me. You know, it's been a lot of work as well. Don't get
yeah. You've got to put the work in, haven't you?
I mean, what a job to do full time. You know, this is what I do for a living. Is I read books and read stories about the paranormal. I mean, you know, I love it.
I've got a question for you, which is going back to the angels, because it just popped up in the chat room. But a thought just occurred to me when you talked about your job and your work. So what you put in your passport is profession, angel woman.
Author.
But sorry, just tickles my fingers, man. Do American custom official reading the angel lady as a profession.
You know, so people are always really impressed with that as well. Oh, you're an author. One lady said to me, "I've never met anyone famous before," and I said, "You still haven't."
Well, Karen in the chat room said she's been reading. So they've got questions are flying in now for about the angels. Karen's been reading a lot about you on the Angels website, and that you mentioned that angels can make you tingle down one side. And Karen says, "I've been feeling this since I read it. So does this mean my angels is with me, or my angels are with me?"
I know this sounds bizarre, but when people start to talk about physical phenomena that they get, when they're getting flickering in their eyes, they're getting buzzing down the side of their body, where they're getting ears ringing, I always say the first thing to do is go to see your doctor.
Yeah.
Not joking, because, you know, yes, absolutely, it could be psychic phenomena, but, you know, what if it isn't?
Yeah.
And you know, the most important thing is, you know, that you go, if seriously, if you're having some sort of phenomena within your body, is absolutely not, I'm not joking at all now. And the first thing I would absolutely do is go and see your doctor, because I would hate for people to say, you know, I read in your book that if you see this or you experience that, you know, it means that your angel's with you, and that person's got something seriously wrong with them. Yeah. You know, and they think, no, what, seriously? Yes, seriously, go and check out the physical symptoms first of all.
Yeah, I mean, you've actually answered the question about the ears. Tash Fabulosis asked the same question about the ears ringing. Yeah, I totally agree. I call myself a skeptical medium, because I'd always, same as you, one say it's an angel, it's spirit. First of all, look for a logical reason.
Yeah,
deal with it.
I've sort of never been a floaty fair type of angel expert. It's not what I do. You know, if you see me on TV, I've usually got, I call them daytime TV jackets. You know, like newsreader or weather girl jackets. And I've got crystal jewelry, but I don't wear it if I do television or something, personal appearances, because I need to be seen to be who I am, which is a normal, everyday person who is interested, fascinated in psychic phenomena and anything to do with the paranormal.
Yeah, but in 2008 you were the cover girl, weren't you, for Eternal Spirit magazine?
I was. I keep hoping I can repeat that somewhere. No, I'm getting too old now. I have to get somebody to airbrush all the photos for me. You know, they do these glossy magazines, you know, just sort of... I think the only way I should get back on the cover of a magazine, I should have to have my own TV show, and I've come close to it a few times, but, you know, I love it. I do think it's important that you remain with one foot in the earth plane at all times, you know? I do believe that there is psychic phenomena that happens. So, for example, as you'll know yourself, you know, you'll do a ghost hunt, you'll get a cold spot in a room, for example. You know, I often, when my dad's around, I'll feel very warm. I'd never heard that anybody else experienced that.
We've had it once, in a particular occasion.
Yeah, it's straight. And the earringing thing, I've had that today, and I always joke about it, and I go, "Oh, incoming." I'm connecting. You know, I feel I'm connecting with something at that point. And I do believe that we do manifest these sort of physical phenomena. But just seriously, please, just to set my mind at ease, if you get any of this stuff, just get it checked out first of all, because then you can say, well, I've been to the doctor, and you know there is another cause.
You need to eliminate it, don't you?
Oh, yeah, just for your own safety's sake. You know, people think you're a crazy nutcase. You know, you turn around and go, well, I've been to the doctor, and, you know, there isn't anything wrong.
Well, Karen's just posted in the chat room saying she's going to go to the doctor's. Just to make sure. Heading towards the end of the show, I want to quickly, before I ask you another question, just mention that Angel Psychic Artist, I know I just interviewed Colin Fye for her magazine, plugging the Omea Mars bar. It says Colin Fye says that Jacky is the only angel expert he has any time for.
Oh, did he really? Oh, bless him. That's very sweet. Well, I have a lot of time for Colin. I've known Colin for a very long time. He's a very genuine, very nice man. He's had a lot of stick over the years. Yeah.
I mean, on Facebook...
Isn't it common, isn't it, in the media? You know, if you become successful, if you're a nice person, you become successful. There just comes a point they build you up, and then they just look for a reason to knock you down. And I can't be bothered with it. Yeah. You know, I know these people. It's a hard job going out there doing readings on for TV. Certainly, the pressure of that is horrendous. You know, and I know them all. I know they're all genuine. All the people that I know. I can't speak for every psychic medium, obviously, but certainly the friends that I have in the psychic world, genuine mediums. I've seen it at work, and you know, it annoys me when people knock them. Yeah, he's a nice guy. I love him.
Yeah, I often speak to him on Facebook, and we don't always agree on things. We've had some arguments, but he is a genuine guy.
Oh, absolutely. Very lovely man.
And just because we're right near the end of the show, I just want to know what's next for yourself, what you got coming up, or what you're planning, or things you maybe kind of can't tell, tease about.
Lots of pies. Well, I'm hoping more television, so watch this space. I've also got two more books coming out. I've just had a book come out. So I had a book 2 weeks ago come out. That was my latest book of stories. That was a couple of weeks ago. Then I've got a book out in January. I've got a book out in March. I'm a busy girl, aren't I?
There's a lot of books.
You know, all your listeners, you can pick that up all from the website. But the latest book is Protected by Angels. That's the new one. And then the next one is Angel Blessings. That's out in January. And then March, I think it is, I've written a book about people's experiences of heaven.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
You know, it's a slight detour for me. Yeah. But I was telling people saying, what happens when you die? And I thought, well, I'm going to go and find out. So that's all real experiences.
And Karen says that you're including a story of hers in your book that comes out in January.
Well, it must be a good one then.
And anybody who's interested, we'll put the link up there. You can go to the Angel's website, that's at the address, and get a book. Buy a book, anyone you want.
It's jackynewcomb.com.
Yeah.
So I think we'll have to say a big thank you for coming on.
Really enjoyed it.
Lots of fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed chatting to you. Thank you. No. And thank you. Great questions from your chat room people.
Yeah, some excellent ones. I'm pleased you answered it because I couldn't have.
I love it.
Like Jacky. Sorry, Jacky.
Thank you very much, and we'll chat again soon, maybe.
Look forward to it.
Yes. See everyone soon.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.
So the afterlife and spirit guides. That's probably the best way to describe it.
I do it all, really. I mean, the thing is, I've been called the angel lady for a long time, but the trouble is, if you're going to do anything in the paranormal, you really need to know about it all, because they all interconnect, don't they?
I mean, my only problem is because I'm a psychic medium. So, first of all, you tell people to go, really? Because they don't believe us. Because I have a look. Then they start talking about UFOs, or zombies, or witches. It's like,
I know.
Yes, you've got to know most of the stuff that it connects. You need to know.
You do, yeah. And over the years, I mean, I've read about everything. I've written about everything. It's just useful to have a sort of an understanding of everything paranormal because of the way it interconnects. And I mean, I'll go on the radio and people will start talking about angels, because that's why I've been invited on, and then I'm answering questions about ghosts and the afterlife, and so it's just easier. Plus, I'm fascinated with it all. It's all interesting stuff, isn't it?
Well, given the fact you mentioned the angels, I'm sure that's the first question, and the question you get asked most often is, how did you get involved? Was there something early in life which led you on this path? Yeah,
there was. When I was about 5 years old, we were on a family holiday, and I'd been sort of building sandcastles with my sister, and my mum sent me down to the sea to rinse the sand off my hands, ready for lunch. We were going to have sandwiches.
Yeah, taking tomato, no doubt.
It was a really hot day.
Yeah.
And I'd got flip-flops on, because the sand was so hot. Oh. And I took my swimming ring down with me, because I thought, well, I'll just have a little paddle while I'm there to cool off. And I walked down to the sea, and sort of, before I knew it, I'd been lifted up by the waves, and was sort of bobbing around, which was fine.
Yeah, fun.
Suddenly I couldn't touch the bottom. And
lots of fun.
Yeah, it was a bit scary. 5-year-old, and couldn't swim, and I found myself being pulled out to sea. Oh, and my parents, they couldn't see me because the beach was sort of crowded up, and I, after all, was meant to be washing my hands and coming back. Mm. And I started to panic, and at that stage, even at 5, I remember thinking, I could die today. Mm. And as that thought entered my head, I suddenly felt this sort of great sense of peace and calm. And I had a voice, I would say the voice that occurred to me rather than I heard it, but the voice said, you can drown if you want to. So I was given a choice as to whether I wanted to live or die, and obviously I chose to live.
It's like you're talking to us.
Why would you want to die? No, I want to live, thank you. And I mean, in the true Hollywood version of the story, I'd suddenly find myself flying back onto the beach or something.
Yeah.
The real life version was that I was suddenly able to move myself forward and got onto the beach very quickly. In fact, I got out and thought, oh, perhaps I've just learnt to swim, and went back in the water and promptly went under. So that was a bit dumb, wasn't it? But there you go.
You can just imagine the angel going, fuck. Yeah.
I got sort of stepped out of my swimming ring and realised that all the air had come out, so I hadn't even had that to help me. And I remember running up the beach and saying, Mummy, Mummy, I nearly drowned. And she sort of said, yes, but you're fine, dear, have a sandwich.
That's parents do.
Yeah, and it's like the big moment had gone. And I remember thinking, even at that moment, let it go. Mm. And I forgot about the experience for years and years and years until I was an adult. And I was watching television. It was watching This Morning, and it was with Richard and Judy.
Good grief, yeah.
So, yeah, we're going back a long way, aren't we? And somebody came on and they were talking about angels. And this memory of mine that I had as a child came flooding back. And I remember thinking, oh, I wonder if that was an angel experience. Mm. And it was that point that I then started to investigate the phenomena and became hooked.
It just strikes me as very... I won't go for my whole story, but basically I was age 40-something when I had to give up work. And I was a skeptic. And there was a series of events which led me, just as you did, to start to investigate it. So it wasn't a case of an instant conversion in belief. It was a slow process of finding out, getting some information about the topic, the subject, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, from a... Hey, Jacky, it's Stephen. You know it's me, because we spoke beforehand, so you know it's me.
You're spoiling the mystery.
I know, I'm spoiling the mystery there. I've spoiled it all. For the layman people who may be listening, I mean, it's probably a hard answer to put into... a big question to put into a small answer. I mean, what are angels, and maybe what's their place in the spiritual world?
Well, these days people will often call their deceased loved ones angels.
Right.
And, I mean, angels in the traditional sense are created by God or our creator, the supreme being, whatever you want to call that one single essence. They were created for many reasons, mainly to worship and praise God. That's the tradition.
Handy to have, yeah. I want one.
Pretty good role there.
Yeah.
But I mean, one of those roles is also to take care of humankind amongst.
Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Extreme Ghost Hunting Presents with your hosts, Mr. Paul Green, the Psychic Breaker.
Hello.
And myself, the Extreme Ghost Hunter, in inverted commas, Stephen Lambert.
Are you sure?
Well, possibly. Okay. And our show tonight, a very special guest, Jacky Newcomb. But before we get Jacky on, touch wood, touch your head, Paul. We've had no technical problems tonight, and we know Jacky's line's absolutely clear as a whistle.
We're doomed.
We're doomed now. I said this last month and everything went off. Just everybody listening, obviously, if you're a guest in the chat room and you want to ask a question or you want to chat with other people in the chat room, you have to, well, you don't have to register. You can sign in through your Facebook accounts or your Twitter or your MySpace or your Google accounts. I say it's quite easy. People seem to have trouble doing it. It's easy for us because we're already logged in. If you want to post a question, you know, and you don't want anybody else to see, just PM, message me and Paul in the or private message Paul
you
himself.
Whisper.
Or whisper. You can whisper even. If you just want to sit and listen, that's fine. If you've got a question for Jacky, put it in there, and if it's clean and we can do it, we'll ask it. But I don't want to waste any more time.
Good.
And I would like to welcome Jacky to the show.
Well, good evening.
Hello. Now, I'm sure most people know exactly who you are and what you do. But to recap, for those people who may have stumbled across the show, you're an author.
I am, yeah. 14 books down.
How many?
14.
Yeah, see, for one side said 13, one side said 14, so we've got it right, 14.
14, we had 14, that was good.
14, yes. We have just released another one in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, all right. You're an expert on angels, ghosts.
And things. So that what you're talking about here is a sort of a light being, a being of light, not a spirit or a soul, nothing like a human soul would be, a being without free will. The sort of thing that you would read about in the Bible. That's a traditional angel.
Right.
Over the course of my work, people have talked about other things other than that traditional angel. So they might be talking about a spirit that helps them, so what you would call a traditional spirit guide in the Native American tradition. Mm-hmm. So a deceased spirit who comes back and helps you, or also, as we said earlier, a deceased loved one who will come back and often appear in dreams and things like that and say, you know, I'm still here, I'm still around you, I'm still with you, I'm your guardian angel now.
Right.
So they don't mean angel in the traditional sense. What they mean is, I'm here looking over you, watching out for you, helping you. I'm still around for you. So angel, you know, it's a long answer to a short question.
Yeah, no, it actually is of interest to me. There's actually a question that popped in the chat room, which leads on to a question I had as well. Because, first of all, when I was in development class as a medium, I was first of all told that an angel is an energy which hasn't touched the earth plane, so it wouldn't be somebody who was born and went back into life.
No, I mean not normally.
Yeah.
I mean, tradition has it that there are angels that have been created from man, from humankind. But to be honest, that's when you start to get into what I call the boring stuff.
That's probably what the question is, actually.